You are listening to Perplexity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Perplexity, a mystery podcast. As always, I am your host, Kaydra. If you're new to the show, hello and welcome. I tell tales every single week that have perplexed me. So if you love a good mystery that leaves you wanting more, don't worry, you're in the right place. And if you end up enjoying today's episode, I would love if you continue to follow along and leave a 5-star review wherever you listen or hit the subscribe button on YouTube. If you are a returning listener, hello, my friends, welcome back. So happy you're here. I have a special episode for you guys today. Today, I am unlocking the Patreon vault for the second time as I take a little bit of a break, getting ready for all the content creation I'm going to be bringing you guys in October. So this is going to be something I recorded way back in December. You will hear my first ever volume of a series I've been doing on Patreon for a while. It is creepy stories from the internet, and I just get on Reddit, find some creepy stories with lots of upvotes, and read them for the first time, so you guys get my honest reactions. I'm going to be sharing 4 of those stories today from Volume 1, and then I will finish this episode with a personal story. I've shared several other personal stories on my Patreon as well. So all of that to say, if you guys end up liking this episode, I would encourage you to go check out the Patreon. There's tons more like this on there, and that is patreon.com/perplexity mystery podcast. With that being said, and because this episode is all about the Patreon, I would like to thank my patrons. Thank you to Ash, Claire, Scott, Amanda, Neha, Jennifer, and Relana. You guys are amazing. You are the reason I get to keep doing this podcast, so it means the world that you guys are supporting. I would like to remind everyone that Halloween is coming up. I really want your listener stories, so send all of those please to perplexitymysterypodcast@gmail.com. And also an exciting announcement. I've been posting about this on Instagram, but I am going to be doing another virtual live show. A lot of you guys were hoping I was going to do another one, and the answer is yes. I want to celebrate, of course, Halloween, but also my 100th episode, which just so happens to fall on the very last week of October, Halloween week. So, live on YouTube, Wednesday, October 30th, 8 p.m. Central. I will be on there chatting with you guys and sharing some stories, so you don't want to miss it. Be sure you've saved the date and that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel at Perplexity Mystery Podcast. Trigger warning for today's episode: this podcast is not for children. Listener discretion is advised. And the only source that I used for today's episode is Reddit. So there are no show notes today. I will be shouting out the Reddit users that did these stories as I read those stories to you. So without further ado, let's get into today's Patreon leak. I am going to read you guys some creepy stories from the internet today. I got some feedback, quite a bit actually, that you guys really wanted this. And I know when I read some bonus creepy internet stories for October, you guys really enjoyed that. So I thought it would be great to do it for Patreon. So I found this forum on Reddit called True Scary Stories. I have not screened these stories. I'm literally just going to scroll through and find ones that have a lot of upvotes and read them to you. So you'll get my honest reaction. So let's see. I just pulled up the forum here, and there's one that was posted 17 hours ago called Puka. And that is the Irish word for spirit or ghost. So we should have a paranormal story here. Let's see. My best friend and I took an impromptu trip to Ireland. Disclaimer, I'm not very good at writing, and I'll lump storytelling into that as well. I'm going to try and keep this very simple as to not reveal the general location. I would hate to think that this beautiful place would get swamped with people looking for a supernatural entity. Looking back now, the whole trip was supernatural. The ocean was flat the whole time, no exaggeration. There was no waves in any of our 10 days of pictures, and we stayed along the coast, northwest, southeast, the whole time, camping and sightseeing. And barely only 2 hours on one day, no rain, We agonizingly packed for rain. It was very spur of the moment, with a couple places of interest highlighted, but overall, no itinerary. Quick sidebar, I feel like that's the best vacation. I feel like when you overplan, you get disappointed. Like, pick a list of things you want to do and hope for the best, but I feel like no itinerary is the way to go for sure. To keep it cost effective, we scheduled a camper van to give us the freedom of exploration on our no itinerary trip instead of going hotel to hotel, because we didn't know which direction we were going in once we got into the island. There was sadly a miscommunication with the company I booked the van through, so we ended up having to book a passenger van. We made this work. Sorry, there's like a lot of typos, so I'm trying to say it in a way that actually makes sense. Part of the adventure, right? Obviously, going to Ireland, we're hoping to see something supernatural. Not like anybody wants to run into fairies. Ooh, but the prospect sounds pretty cool. Guys, let me know if you want me to do a fairies episode. It's on my list, but I'm trying to think of when a good time would be to do it. We've gone along the northern coast, seeing sights, picking out camping spots, having a great time. One of our stops and potential campsites happens to be by a waterfall. We keep trying to put it in the direction to the specific waterfall. Oh, I think they're saying they were trying to put the directions like in their GPS. It gave us a different location, but it was in the same area, so we were stumped. After driving around and sightseeing in that area, looking for this doppelganger waterfall, we see a small sign off to the side of the road with what looks like a info placard. Looking at our map and the name, nothing adds up, but hey, part of the adventure, right? We park the car, get out, look at the directions, and head up the trail. There's no one around, which is great. We're enjoying this and the nature, and we get the waterfall all to ourselves on this hot day. The views are absolutely breathtaking in this area, and we continue to climb up the trail and towards the waterfall. As we got closer, we started to hear people talking. We looked at each other and exchanged faces, knowing it means, pooey, people. It was a couple sitting underneath the gnarliest oak we had ever seen, by a very dried up river, having a picnic. They were both quite surprised to see us and showed it. We did our normal hiker, hey, hello, how are you deal, and they still looked confused as to why we were there. You know there's no water, right? The girl said. And come to think of it, we didn't even think there wasn't going to be water. We were coming from a wild, smoky fire, New England, and looking for some reprieve from the smoke and the news. So we never thought to check it before coming. Still taking on our it's part of the adventure attitude, we said, that doesn't matter. We came for the nature regardless. We're going to have a good time no matter what. This also took the couple aback. We said our goodbyes and continued to the waterfall. I have to add this to the story because I feel like it's part of it. And I know it sounds weird, but I make little figurines out of clay to put in places that I've been around the world. Tiny little mushroom people. Oh, that's so cute. I love that. This waterfall was going to be home to one of my little mushroom men. As the couple said, there was no water, but it was still very green, lush, and beautiful. Sharp walls on either sides, full of ferns and shrubs that made a V-shaped green, secluded paradise, straight down to where the trail split at the oak. We talked and appreciated the beauty of it for about an hour, then left the mushroom man at his new home and left to continue the adventure on the trails in the surrounding forest. As I said, the walls on either side of this waterfall were very steep and it was quite wide. My best friend was behind me, and I said, I hope he likes his new home. And to our right, against the wall, we heard a deep growl / clicking like predator sound, low and drawn out. We outright froze. I turned to look at her, and as our eyes met, we heard it a second time. Our jaws hit the ground, and somewhere between fear and excitement, I decided to lighten the mood and jokingly whispered, maybe we should go back up and see what it was. Immediately after saying this, we heard a very fast rustling of leaves from our side of the gulch to the other, and we heard the same low click / drone predator sound. Our faces go pale, and I turned around, like a straightened out soldier, and we marched down those stairs so quickly to the trailhead. I'm surprised we didn't slip. We got down to the separate trailhead and were completely frazzled. She looked at me. What the fuck was that? I looked at her puzzled and said, how should I know? We sat there for a minute looking at local birds and animals, adding up to what we heard come out of the gulch. As we sat there beside ourselves, there's one more trail we hadn't gone on before we left, just to calm our nerves. Okay, so I guess they decided to just walk it off and go on this last trail. We walk in silence for a little while down this looping trail and started to regain our nerves and happiness of the adventure that we were having, trying to forget the noise we heard and couldn't explain. We start to walk a joke a little bit. I don't know what that means. Maybe joking and walking around. And finally, the lightheartedness and fun had come back. We were almost coming back to the trail loop when I looked at her and said, I hope we don't run into that thing again. As soon as I said this, a single loud ha 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 from a crow sounded right above us. Just as quick as we were back in our skin, we jumped right out and quickly stepped down to the rest of the trail towards our car. We were practically running out of that forest to our car. We tried to rationalize this for hours, then started searching online, and our only answer was either fairies or puka, which led us to our next destination, Nakapuka Mountain. Okay, I'm adding this to my list. Nakapuka Mountain. Oddly enough, if this hadn't happened, we never would have found this location to go hiking to or camp by. Ireland is still wildly magical and is truly beautiful. I hope this wasn't too boring or filled with spelling errors, but it scared the crap out of us. Enjoy. Okay, let's look at some of the comments. I had a puka friend once. His name was Harvey. 6-foot-tall white rabbit with a dapper hat. 'Twas a good puka. Wild. This is a new post, so there's not a lot of comments. Someone else said, that's so weird. Today I was watching Haunted Ireland on Discovery Plus, and they went to these caves. I forget what they were called, but supposedly very haunted by elementals, and they were talking about pukas. I've never even heard of this entity, and it's come up twice today. Very odd, but cool story. Very curious as to what sound you heard. Ireland sounds so nice, too. I've been to Ireland, and when I went, it was several years ago, I went to a bunch of castles, which was really cool. We did castle tours. We did a whiskey tour, which I highly recommend. I also highly recommend that you try Guinness if you go to Ireland because it tastes completely different over there. It's delicious in my opinion. And I went in January, so it was extremely cold. It was wet and rainy all the time. We were in Dublin for several days, and then we also went to Edinburgh in Scotland. 10 out of 10 trip, and it was just sleepy and rainy, and then all the buildings are super old. So I had a great time there. I hope this person didn't run into a puka in the forest or a fairy, but who knows? Okay, let's find another story. We're just going to keep going with the upvotes concept. Let's see. Ooh, okay, this has 50 upvotes, and it was posted 2 days ago. It says Altoona, Pennsylvania. I could be wrong, but is that where there was someone? I thought there was someone who disappeared in Altoona. I'm looking it up. Yeah, Brian Schaefer. Let me see. He disappeared from the Tuna Saloona. Maybe that's why I'm thinking of it. In Ohio. Okay, so never mind. That made me think of the Brian Schaefer case. Altoona, Pennsylvania. I just realized I don't know if I should be giving these people credit as I'm reading their story. Okay, hold on, backtrack. So the puka story, if anyone wants to look it up, it's Reddit user Red Punzel. And this one that I'm about to read, Altoona, Pennsylvania, is from Reddit user Dylan with Fear. Okay. This one seems pretty short. I was a single mother in my mid-40s and had just moved to a new house with my then 4-year-old son back in 2002 when we were both living in our hometown of Altoona, Pennsylvania. I had only been there for a few weeks when one late night there was a knock on our front door. My son was asleep on the couch and I was still up packing and putting things away. I pulled the curtain aside and looked out to see a petite young woman standing and shivering,
on our porch. Girl, this is straight out of a horror movie. Don't go to the door. Don't do it. Our front door had a chain latch attached to it, so I kept it on as I opened the door, only as far as the latch would allow. Then I asked her what she wanted. She said she had locked herself out of the house and asked if she could come in and use the phone. I asked her where she lived, and she described an address of a house about a block and around the corner. She would have had to have passed at least a dozen houses, which I noticed had their porch lights on. And there was also a still operational payphone across the street. Alarm bells in my head were going off. This person is very observant. That's good thinking there. With my young son asleep in our living room, I was reluctant to let her in. But it was a chilly winter night, so I offered a coat and my cell phone, which I handed off to her through the doorway. She took my coat and my phone, then called someone, but walked to the other end of the porch where I couldn't hear her. So I closed the door after. I told her to put the phone in the mailbox when she was done and to bring my coat back tomorrow. She left the phone but never returned my coat. For several weeks, I got strange phone calls at all hours. People on the end of those calls were demanding to know where I was when I answered, or they simply hung up. Approximately 2 to 3 months later, I was reading the front page of Altoona's local newspaper when I found a photo of the young woman who had knocked on our door that night. Oh my God, I just got like full body chills. She and 10 other suspects had been arrested in a major drug bust. I immediately got chills thinking back to that cold winter night, how she showed up in a sleeveless shirt after passing several homes in the neighborhood. I wonder what might have happened to me and my young son if I had ignored my unease and my suspicions in spite of her seemingly helpless appearance. Oh, that's so creepy. Wow. Listen to your gut, everybody. We live in a crazy world. And it sucks too because, you see somebody, it's like the same thing as when you're driving and you see somebody on the side of the road or someone who like needs help or appears to need help, especially women alone in their car. Like, you're not going to stop and help that person, which seems morally wrong, but like we have to protect ourselves. I'm glad nothing happened to her. Okay, I think we're going to read like one or two more. Let's find another one here. This one has a lot of upvotes, and it was just posted 2 days ago. Let's see. Okay, this one is from Reddit user, oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this, Ncha member. It's NCHA member. And it's called My Friend Saved My Life from a Creature. We love a creature. Okay, so they say, I'll keep it long but informative. Okay. About 3 years ago, my friend and I, 17 and 16 at the time, were having a bonfire behind my barn. It was a perfect night. No wind, hoodie weather. The fire was gigantic and lit up all the surrounding area. We were screwing around, having a good time, and got the idea to walk about 500 feet down to check out my pond, as part of the water was illuminated from the fire. We walked down, joking about a skinwalker or some humanoid creature coming out of my woods. Ooh, don't talk about them. If you guys listened to my skinwalker episode, it invites them in. Let me get this straight. For years and years, I've always told myself I want to see something, practically begging for something to happen so I can whip out my phone and record it. My friend always gets tensed up when I say anything about that stuff, so it's funny to me, especially since we were surrounded by woods in the middle of farmland country. We were down at the pond, and I saw him kind of notice something shiny about 20 feet to our right. Yes, after all this, we measured everything. He said, "Hey, where'd that giant rock come from?" I looked and immediately knew it wasn't a rock or anything, as I just mowed the area a few hours prior. The only thing around us were 2 full-grown trees. We started walking towards it, and as we got closer, I kept saying, "What the hell is that?" He started freaking out, yelling, "What the hell is that?" I was just in complete awe. By this point, I was about 5 feet from it and weighing out what it could be. It wasn't a rock. It wasn't a tree stump. Nothing should be here. It was about 3 feet long, maybe 2 feet high, and it immediately hit me. This is something crouched down, like in a fetal position. I made out a neck and a torso, wrinkled grayish skin, little white hairs. And I said it one more time. What is this thing? My friend screamed in straight terror, grabbed me and pulled me away. We both ran up to my house, looking back, making sure it wasn't following. We ran in my house and told my mom, who obviously said, "Oh yeah?" I grabbed a flashlight and we got in my Civic and drove through the yard down to where it was. Headlights shined down and nothing was there. We drove all around through the woods and found nothing. The next morning we went back and found no prints. The only thing I wish I had done was take out my phone. I was right there. Something was right there. When you're looking at something you know shouldn't be there, you don't have a thought. I never had one thought to pull out my phone. To this day, my friend and I still talk about it, wondering what it was. That makes sense because I feel like a lot of like paranormal phenomena and UFOs, a lot of the people say like, I didn't even think to pull out my phone because I was in shock. And then skeptics are always like, why is there no evidence? Which, fair. But if they were truly shocked and scared, I wouldn't think to pull out my phone. You're in like survival mode at that point. Let's see if any of the comments have anything interesting to say, because I'm like wondering if anyone has theories as to what it was. Someone said, sounds like a wild boar or pig, possibly. And I mean, yeah, but like there were no tracks. That's the weird thing. It kind of reminds me of the Montauk monster and the raccoon theory, that it could be a raccoon that someone burned. It's a horrible thought, but creepy, interesting. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do it, guys. Ooh, okay, this one is called People Are Scarier Than Anything Paranormal. Hard agree. This was written by Reddit user Koala Life 4089. This is a true story of something I experienced. It must have been over a decade by now. I was a kid at the time that my dad had bought this quaint house on the outskirts of a little town. It was a decently sized home with a big backyard overlooking the marshes and unused farmer fields. And the only entrance to it was either through the house or across the large fields. To put into context how this fits into the story was because my bedroom at the time of living with my dad was situated at the back of the house, facing the big backyard. I remember one night very vividly. Some 10-12 years later, I was sitting in my room doing digital artwork on my computer. It was something I loved to do as a teenager, and usually I'd listen to music with headphones on. The way I was sitting had me facing semi-away from the big window in my room, the largest in the house. I had my blackout blinds drawn, and it was the only room in the entire house that had the lights on. I would assume from outside you would see slivers of light through the edges of the folding blinds. I think it was between 2:30 and 3 a.m. I was peacefully minding my own business when I heard a massive slam on my window. It was dull, but a loud thud, and what I thought was a shout. My dad was sleeping peacefully in the room next to me. How he didn't hear anything at the time still amazes me to this day. I remember just sitting there, shook, no clue what I just heard, until it happened again. I heard it clear. Somebody was outside my window in the backyard, and whoever this was had no reason to be there. I remember being too scared to open my blinds. Instead, I got up, just staring at the window, not taking my eyes off of it. Something I'm thankful for to this day was I went with my gut feeling. My gut was telling me to grab a flashlight and check the front door. This was an old house, so I would have to leave the comfort of the house to enter the barn to get to the main entrance of the house. I remember shining my light through the glass in the door. The window had the frosted film for privacy, but sure enough, I barely got the flashlight lifted. 3 to 4 inches to the glass before seeing the coat of whoever was out there. The real kicker, absolute terror set in when I realized the door hadn't been locked this entire time. Oh my gosh, guys, this is why oh my gosh, he's better about it now, but I get into arguments with TJ about this is why we have to lock the door, because people are crazy. Lock your door, people. I managed to lock the door and run inside, and the first thing I grabbed was a bread knife. Not practical, but when your adrenaline and fear is coursing through your brain, it's the last thing you think of. I remember trying to wake up my dad, who was passed out like a drunk sailor, to see whoever was outside. We never found the man, and he never came back. Had I not locked that door, prank or not, I dread to think what would have happened to me. I don't think this was a prank. I feel like anyone who is pounding on your window at 2 or 3 a.m. is an immediate threat. And yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. Lock your doors, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Patreon exclusive episode of Perplexity. Today I'll be sharing another personal story. This one is also a short one, but before I read it, I do want to say trigger warning for abuse. This is a personal story. I'm going to open up a little bit. This is a part of my life that I don't enjoy talking about, but I feel this is an important story. You're going to hear about an experience that changed my life. So one time when I was in college, I came home from work and I lived at a student living apartment complex. So I parked my car in the lot just outside my apartment building. I think it was like a Friday or a Saturday night because I noticed my neighbors were having a party. There was music blasting. People were packed onto one of the patios on like the second or third floor. And I saw a girl sprinting away from that area where the party was and running towards a car. And she seemed very frantic and terrified. She ran to the passenger side of the car and she opened the door really quickly and she kind of like just threw herself inside. And then when she tried to shut the passenger door, there was this young guy that had appeared from behind her. He was furious and screaming. And he started fighting with her. They're like fighting back and forth, she's trying to shut the car door. He's trying to pry it open. But eventually she did manage to like shut the door and lock it. And this pissed this dude off. He started beating on the door and on the windshield. And at the time that I'm witnessing all of this, I myself was in a very abusive relationship, which I really haven't spoken about before on the podcast, but I was 21 years old and trapped in hell with a psychopath. And while at the time I didn't have the courage to stand up for myself, nor was it safe at the time for me to do so or to leave the relationship, it's like when I saw that girl, I saw myself. And for the first time, something bubbled up inside of me. While this piece of shit was beating on the car, yelling, cursing, and screaming, I became both enraged and fearless. And I remember thinking, like, how dare he? How dare he talk to her like that? And the next thing I knew, I was outside of my car screaming, leave her the hell alone. And I remember the guy stopped what he was doing and he like turned towards me. He took a couple steps and he scoffed. He said something like, what are you going to do about it? And I remember it took everything in me to keep my tone firm and fearless. But I remember I said something like, leave or I'm going to call the cops. And he did leave. Looking back, I should have just called the police, but I didn't want him to hurt her. I just wanted him to leave. So after he left, I walked over to the car. I got the girl out and I invited her up to my apartment to calm down and gather her thoughts. I knew that my boyfriend was not going to be home, so I knew it was like a safe time for her to go with me. And during that time, she was able to call her mom. Her mom came about 10 minutes later to pick her up. She told me that
she had been at that party that I saw when I was pulling in, and that this guy was new in her life. They had just started dating. While my abuse and psychological manipulation took months to come to fruition, hers only took a few weeks. And she said that he was getting jealous every time that she talked to someone at the party besides him, even like friends. I can't remember what else she said, or even I don't even remember what I said to her, other than that she didn't deserve to be treated like that and that it wasn't okay. Her mom picked her up, she left, and that was it. I don't know what happened to her. And weirdly, I don't even remember what she looks like, but I think about her often. And the reason this is significant to my life is I think in a way that we saved each other, because that made me realize just how insane and dangerous and abusive my relationship was, and that it was only a matter of time before things could get really, really bad for me. So after that, I actually made a plan to leave. And I mustered the strength to get out. I did, and I got out. So part of me thinks that this stranger, that I owe her my life. So to that girl in the parking lot, I hope you're doing well. That personal story was quite heavy. I had honestly forgotten about it. It's like I had been thinking about it, holding on to it for a long time, and then I told it on the show and forgot about it again. So editing this week's episode actually made me quite emotional, thinking about all of that again. But I hope you guys appreciate me sharing that story. And if it does resonate with anybody, I just want to say, I see you, I understand you, you're not alone, and there are resources. I would encourage everyone to please, if you are in a situation like this or you know someone who is, call the domestic violence hotline. Their phone number is 800-799-7233. And if you guys want more creepy stories from the internet, personal stories, documentary coverage, bonus episodes, and random personal videos I decide to make, I would encourage you to check out the Patreon and join the Perplexed Society. I do have a welcome video on there as soon as you get to the website that talks about each of my 4 tiers in the Perplexed Society, but I'll just kind of briefly summarize them. If you join at the $1 tier, that provides general support for the show. You'll get a shout out on the show and a welcome letter from me. You also get early and ad-free episodes. If you join at the second tier, that is the $3 tier, so you get all of those benefits from tier 1. You also get exclusive bonus content, including some video. The third tier is $5 a month, and that is where you will get all of the things from tier 1 and tier 2, and then you will also get some limited edition Perplexity stickers. And the fourth and final tier is the $10 tier, the Perplexed Society Supreme Leader tier, and that is where you get everything from the other tiers, and then after you're a member for 6 months, you get a t-shirt of your choice. I have lots of really fun, cool merch designs on Bonfire, so when you've been a member 6 months, you pick it out, and I send it to you, including shipping. So if any of that interests you, or if you just want to support the show, it would mean the world if you go check out the Patreon. And again, just reminding everybody, send your stories to perplexitymysterypodcast@gmail.com and save the date for that virtual live show on Wednesday, October 30th, 8 p.m. Central on YouTube Live. You all are amazing. I hope you have a great week and stay safe, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.